Gender-based violence cases in Kenya have been on the rise ever since the government implemented the COVID-19 containment measures early last year. According to reports compiled by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, over 23% of Kenyans have witnessed or encountered domestic violence in the past 1 year. In September last year, during the height of the pandemic, GBV cases reported through the hotline 1195 were 810, 646 the previous month, highlighting a 25% increase. The statistics were documented in the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs report, and to help us understand more about the impact of COVID-19 and gender-based violence, Dr. Bolo and I sat down. Hello and welcome to this week's program. This program is brought to you by Search for Common Ground and funded by the European Union. This week we'll be talking about gender-based violence during the COVID pandemic in a psychological angle. My guest today is Mr. Collins. Please introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Thank you very much. I'm Collins Bolo. I'll prefer you to call me Coach Collins Bolo, specifically for this program.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the founder of Family Health, Life Skills and Career Development.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we are addressing life from a home, developed holistically as far as the physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual, financial, and also mental is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate being in this forum today.
We also thank you for finding time in your busy schedule
Sure.
to fix us somewhere in there. And I think, Dr. my first question would be for you to demystify what gender-based violence is, because we have grown up in a patriarchal society and it's normally directed to the female gender, and we've been witnessing the male gender also suffering from these things. So what is the line? Is gender-based violence only against women, and what exactly is gender-based violence anyway?
Upon doing a lot of studies about different group of people, definition, the people from the West, the people from the East, African context, I came up with the following as my definition for gender-based violence. Actually, it's a form of manipulation, an act of manipulation towards making a person subject to its perpetrator.
Mm-hmm.
Perpetrator's selfish intention, as it violates his or hers two group of people, including this particular plan, his or her physical, sexual, emotional, financial, and psychological and social rights of this particular individual, livelihood based on gender biasness. Now, there are a number of things here, key number of things. One, I'm saying it's a form of an act of manipulation, meaning whatever you are doing, your intention is to manipulate the other person, to be a subject of the perpetrator's selfish intention. So there's a perpetrator, and there's someone who's been made a subject through a process of manipulation or an act of manipulation, making this particular individual to be helpless within that context of an environment. However, the whole process or the act taking place at this particular point makes the person being violated either is physical, psychological, sexual life, emotional life, financial life, at this particular time being pushed and violated based on the biasness of that particular individual.
Great.
That's
so
where I'm
I
coming
think
in.
For these cases to exist, there must be reasons or factors these cases, or like environment that makes it conducive. So what are the causes of GBV?
There are so many causes of GBV. And our context today is during this pandemic season, because it's a global phenomenon, and in different society, different kinds of things are happening. Because during this particular point, there are both men and women. Now, because we are talking of the context of the pandemic, there are several factors which we need to check. Contributing specifically towards contribution of this scenario. One, we have the cultural norms. When I talk about cultural norms, you're talking issues like, for example, FGM. Now, girls are back at home. Now, communities whereby they support female genital mutilation at this particular time, all the girls are around. There's nothing which can hold it from taking place. But the perpetrators are not men. They are women on behalf of men.
Right.
Because of the cultural view on that particular subject. Meaning because now girls who are supposed to be in school and away from that kind of an environment, now they're becoming more vulnerable to the
School
same.
actually initially acted as a
Yes.
form of protection away
Yeah, the
from
school was a
culture.
form of protection.
Now they have to be
And also
confined
the
to
church.
home. Very true.
But now people
now
away from church
school
and
is
from school,
closed.
now they're available. So what happens? The culture will continue as usual and as normal. Issues of culture, again, you realize that in some of our society, because parents have not been trained to talk and discuss issues with their children, they tend to use force and pain as a means of communication.
Very true.
Leading
Especially
to violence
in the
African context.
We always depend on the teachers to tell them what to do. We never actually
Yeah.
get to have heart-to-heart talk to the kids.
We don't. Parents don't do it. Unfortunately, teachers also don't do it. Even in the church, it is not being done. Now, that one means people are just growing up for one way or the other. Like, if I could have used Swahili, you could have said, wanafugwa lakini sikulelewa.
Very true.
Most men are emotionally abused as much as most of the women are physically abused by the men. So when you talk about gender-based violence today, it's the context of both male and female. Women are so much in distress and they're abusing their men verbally, so much because of, and men are so much under stress and some of them go physical when it comes to abuse. So that one means both the man and the woman need help. We need to understand the dynamic of gender as far as relationship is concerned, especially at a time like now when both have been forced to stay together in the same house, the same bed, the same facility. Very key and very important. So men are under a lot of distress because they have not grown up being taught to discuss their issues. The best way they not to communicate is to use their fists, just as they saw it from their grandfather and from their father. And abuse becomes, boom, so much because of society competition. Now, the same time you realize both men and women, they have poor coping skills when such kind of things happen.
And for example, COVID no one was on about COVID.
Yes.
It just hit us and now you have to arrange your life and, check your chessboard again.
Yes.
And know what your next move is.
Now, because it came that abrupt and we felt like it was something in the foreign world. We have been caught unaware.
Yes, everyone just assumed this will never get us.
Yes, children are under distress, the fathers are under distress, and the parents are under distress. Why? Some of the fathers, their children are not sure whether they are uncles or their fathers because they have been working from very far. But under this situation and circumstance, finally they're back home. Now we call them absentee parents. Fathers who work so much from very far with an intention of making sure that the family has all that they need. And for them, they feel if they do that, they're men enough. But the society has changed.
That is what used to define what a man
What
is.
a man is.
Long ago, it was okay for a man to be here for a year, as long as at the end of the year he comes with money and
Yes.
bread and meat.
And
That was okay.
And it's frustrating men because they do everything for their family and for their wife, and they wonder why their wives are abusing them. Another example, apart from depression, poor stress management skills is another challenge contributing toward gender-based violence. Both men and women are under a lot of stress, financial stress, emotional stress, relational stress, sexual stress. It's rampant in our society today, now leading to marital rape in our society.
Which is in itself a form of gender-based violence.
It is a form of gender-based violence within our family. It's either men are raping the women or the women are raping the men.
Which is actually very common.
It's
we
common.
just don't know it. It's very common.
Now, for us, it's common because with our counseling therapies, people come and they discuss all these kind of things in their home. And both men and women, because of poor coping skills as far as stress management is concerned, they end up getting violent in different ways. Like the man might have some money and decides to punish the wife by not providing the money, just because she's a woman. That's something weird. Today we have women who have been empowered, they earn a lot, but they decide not to share their resources with their husbands.
Mine is mine.
The
What
money is
case to
mine.
provide.
Yeah, and we're having more and more divorce and separation taking place because the woman is saying, no, my money belongs to me and my people. Your money belongs to us, which becomes really a point of concern. Now, due to lack of poor stress management skills, you realize that many couples today, they find themselves finally ending up in violating and fighting one against the other. And that's an issue of concern.
So during this COVID and the pandemic around it, where we see there are restrictions and now we have to share homes by force, people are out of boarding schools and they're in the same houses, people have lost jobs and have to stay in the same houses. What have you witnessed? Have the cases increased because of COVID and people sharing the same homes? And are there cases more reported, or are there lesser cases reported because now people can actually out get facilities where they can report, like get psychologists?
Actually, we are getting more and more cases reported. Though still others are not reported.
What happens
Now,
because the health system is stretching beyond its capability? What then happens if
you see, with the issue of COVID, COVID is real, and people must take precautions. There's no compromise in that. So your financial incapability and incompetence should not be an excuse for people to die. Now that one means, if it happens that I've been pushing my kids to go to boarding school all the time, and in the process I stay in one-bedroom house, and now school are closed and all the soccer team is in the same house, and cash flow is no longer the same. Now coping skill becomes extremely important. Must all of us stay here? If not, where can others stay so that we minimize congestion in the house? At the same time, if the children are both male and female, what age group are they? Which is the best way, because incest has increased during this particular time. Brothers and sisters, like we had a case. A woman comes for counseling therapy, she's crying and mourning so much. Why? Because his son has impregnated both of her daughters. And she was mad. My daughters are pregnant of my own son. Now, even if they agreed and they are underage, what will we talk about it? What will we say about it? Once we heard again of a father impregnated her daughter after chasing the wife away. That's a typical gender-based violence case, which is there.
One of the most common ones.
Most common in your society, which is really unfortunate. So you realize, unless as a family we come up with mechanism to cope and to manage the situation during this time, then it becomes extremely tricky, and we might create an environment whereby gender-based violence can just take place. Now, these are some of the things which our society are facing, and they need real psychological help. Because it's a typical gender-based violence where people need help. The lady becomes pregnant, she talks to the mom. If the mom will complain, she'll be kicked out of that home, and they are poor and they are wanting.
So you have to be quiet about it.
You have to be quiet about it. If you talk, mom will be kicked out. If mom will be kicked out, you're going to be kicked out.
Especially because, like, the African setup, the man is the sole provider, so you cannot gamble. Especially with COVID, you cannot gamble.
It becomes a challenge. So that means after all is said and done, there's a need for both the boy child, the girl child to be empowered enough so that in case other predicaments come, they can be able to help and support themselves one way or the other. Yeah, very key and very important.
I think we talk about the victims being the children and how the impact to the family. I'd like you to be a little broad and talk to us about what effects gender-based violence has on the general public or the community, because we hear about it every day on the news from our friends. What is that seed that is being planted in the community?
In our community, especially at a time like now, based on the context of pandemic, there's a lot happening in the society. Now, this includes issues like there are people right now who are undergoing post-traumatic stress disorder because they have been sacked. They have nowhere to go. Their identity was based on the position where they were at their workplace. I'm the manager. I'm the marketing and sales manager. I'm the CEO. And because the identity was based on the position, the title and the ranks, and now they've been terminated, boom, most of them are so much stressed as a community. That one is affecting so many people everywhere. Now, if you want to know a good example, if today you go to North Coast and South Coast where hotels have been put down, you realize the impact in that society because of the pandemic. Men have become jobless, women have become jobless, but the demand for day-to-day life is extremely high, leading to emotional, psychological challenge to many of them. That's very key. Then other issues in the society, depression has gone extremely high. Anxiety levels have gone extremely high in the society. Self-harm, people are harming themselves. There are some, they rather even create an injury on themselves to be admitted, and they eat
at the hospital.
At the hospital than staying in the house.
Oh, it is so sad.
Yeah, because the demand is so much from every quarters. You find a young man is the senior in his home. There are several other siblings. The parents are calling every time, we need money, we need support. You are the one in the city. But life in the city has become hostile to most of our people.
Do you think exposing our community to such details, like every single day reporting on the same kind of pattern of gender-based violence, do you think it triggers gender-based violence in other families? Like,
it's funny, in our society, like there was a season whereby there are a lot of reports about suicide, and everybody started doing it.
Suddenly, everyone, and then there was like the killing between couples. Now
now
became rampant.
It's like it's a fashion. It is very much okay, and now the more they hear, it's like I think there's a way out to eliminate this particular problem. So if the person sees the lady or the man as the problem, gets eliminated through death. Unfortunately, in our society, it's so much common. Even in schools, one school will be banned today. Give it another 2 days. All other schools. Yes, it's a reflection of a group of people who are under a lot of stress and depression.
Manifesting it in the same way.
Yes. So
the
behavior.
Similar situation.
Yes, similar situation. So because some are more vulnerable than the others, they tend to try to run away from their problem by taking such kind of actions. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So because we cannot run away from the exams, let us ban the school. Because this girl is on my neck, I've spent a lot, and she's thinking about pulling away from me. Let me.
If I can't have you, no one can have you.
Yeah, no one can have you. Such kind of things. It's a symptom of emotional, psychological, unwellness among most of our people. Yeah, and both men and women are so much affected by the same. Yeah.
So how are we supposed, as external people, how are we supposed to handle victims of gender-based violence? One, there's a need of awareness about how gender-based violence can be so loud and can be so silent. Very true.
First is awareness about what it is, how it's affecting the people,
and the broadness,
and how you might be exercising it without knowing because of our culture.
Very true.
At the same time, that's very key. Now, when it comes to awareness, the second part of it, now that people are aware, how can they get help? We need to involve different stakeholders. The legal fraternity to have their part, the health sector to have its own part.
That includes people like you.
Now, the health sector, there are two different groups of health sector. There are those who deal with physical health, like rape has taken place and such. Then those who deal with emotional, psychological, like some of us. Psychosocial and emotional aspect of the same particular individual, because a person can be taken to the police to report, and then the thing can go to the court, the case can be won, and everybody is happy, the perpetrator is in the prison, but the person who's abused emotionally is so much damaged and so much crushed. So we have to get to all those other dynamics. Now, upon involving different other stakeholders, then people need to be directed to the places they can get help. Once they find themselves in anxiety, stress disorder, depression, and that's when our sector is coming in. Unfortunately, in our African context, because in the past our uncles and our aunts and our parents were the ones we were to share with them about our problem. Today in Kenya, we have so many people who have trained as professional counselors, psychological counselors, and many other more. But still our people have not yet known their value and how they can help as far as those conditions are concerned. So there's a need of awareness. You don't need to be mad or mentally bad for you to come and get our services. We are there, we can do a lot of talk therapy, which actually help the people by the end of the day. Yes.
What conflict resolution measures do you think people can take in their relationships?
like domestic.
To help to get GBV.
One, if each party will realize the importance of the other, it's very important. A good example, every woman has a very big role and important role in taking care and nurturing of the children.
They're naturally naturals.
Yes, the mothering aspect. So male should not think because they provide, then mothering is an easy task. It's not an easy task. So they need to be given their honor and respect when they do their mothering aspect. That's why they're mothers. And they need to be empowered enough so that the children grow up very well and very healthy. Two, men need to be available for their wives and for their children. Because today we are having so many absentee parents who are letting their sons to be so much being brought up by their mothers, and by the time they're mature, they're biologically male but emotionally female. And then you're expecting the same boy to become a great husband. That's the challenge we have today. More men who are biologically masculine but emotionally feminine. Something needs to be done about it. So that one means men need to know their role and to take their role as protectors, as providers, and the ones who are disseminating wisdom for their children in their nurturing and growing up. Very, very key. Then, their children need to be given room to grow and to develop. Let them not be handled as other mature beings. Let children be children. If it's time for playing, let them play. If it's time for studies, let them study.
Because if not, it causes resentment.
There are a lot of
which
other...
is equals to violence.
Yes, yes.
Could have been avoided if you just understood that they're children, and it's a process they need to go through to be proper adults.
Yes, and parents need to take responsibility over the growth and the development of their children. They should not hand it over to any other third party. Grandparents are not parents, and they cannot be parents. They're just grands.
Yeah. They live also in a different generation, so what is going on now? They probably don't even understand.
Sometimes they cannot connect.
Kids today,
yes, and even if they connect, they cannot still be the fathers and they cannot still be mothers. Let each and every parent take the role to protect their children against gender-based violence. It happens. Most of the rape taking place is from close people, close relatives and neighbors.
Yeah. We actually know.
People actually know. If they escape, they can find it in their places of worship or in their neighborhood, in their school. Parents need to be available for their children. Very key. Yes.
Do you think as we wind up that negotiation and possible forgiveness, fractured relationships can be achieved?
Yes.
How?
There's a need for
because
parents.
What happens if I'm a wife and I figure out that you raped my daughter? How does that get any better?
Well, there are different ways to do it. One, separate the act from the person. Hate the act, spare the person. That's the beginning. Now, once you separate the two, it will be easy to know what to address and what not to address.
That's a whole process because
it's a process of its own. Not that easy. It's not that easy, but it's a process which can work. Then you have to check what are some of the factors which led to all this.
What role did you probably play?
Yes. And even maybe as a father, as a mother, maybe as the child who has been abused, we have to check all those dynamics, factors and environmental factors which led to such kind of things. It has to be addressed also.
Yes.
Very important.
Do we probably create environments that incubate such tendencies? Because say you forgive once, what if it happens again with another daughter?
Now, once you know the process and the actions to it, it's easy now to see actions to be taken to avoid such from repeating. For example, there are some men who are having a condition called paranoia. No, paraphilic. It's paraphilic tendencies, whereby it's easy for them to get involved sexually with the kids. So if it gets to a place like your home, at the same time, what are the factors leading to that? Is it maybe because of one room? Is it because of the dress code? Is it because this person is sick, emotional? Don't create an environment for the sickness
to manifest. Very
important. No help. If it will mean the child has to relocate,
the better.
Yeah, but you don't give room and chance again. It affects them later on in life.
I wish we had more time for this because it's very broad, but Whatever you've given us today is very important, because this has continued to be said around this particular time. That's when we realize that it's deeper than we actually thought it was. Now people are actually feeling more pressed to talk about it because they're confined with the perpetrators in the same room every single day. So we need to create room for such issues to be talked about, and that is the purpose of this campaign. We want to thank you for being for coming to come and talk to us.
Welcome. And I appreciate so much.
Our hashtag today is Pamoja, Dhidi ya Corona. Now let us come together to fight the virus and not each other. Thank you.